In our last tutorial, what we did is we created vertex groups. So you can see these right here to organize this box. And in this tutorial, we're going to be exporting this from Blender into Unity perfectly. So there's going to be 3 different ways to export this. I'm going to show you those. I'm going to show you some of the pitfalls and ways to get around those. So first, I want to take this and hit Shift-D to duplicate this, and then move it to a different layer. Shift-D to duplicate it one more time, move it to a layer, like such. This first one, I want to split, so I'm going to tab in here. I'm going to select top, and then hit Select. So in the vertex groups, top select, hit P to separate this. I'm then going to do Lock, Select, separate that. Bottom, Select, separate this. And now the only thing not separated is this latch, so basically it is separated. So we have the top, the bottom, the latch, and this lock here. I'm actually going to go to my second layer and delete this. Go back to that first layer and just duplicate all of this and move that to my second layer. Now the only problem is if I export this, it's going to export just fine, except the pivot point is all going to be right here. So you can see that blue dot is the center. If you select the top, there's the center. Select the lock, there's the center. Select that latch, there's the center. So it's going to basically rotate around that, like that. So we don't want that. What we'd rather have is that they actually pivot around certain points. So I'm going to select this lock, go to transparent mode. What's it called? I always limit selection. So I'm going to unlimit selection. Go to vertex, select all of these, hit Shift-S, cursor to selected, and then Shift-Control-Alt-C, origin to 3D cursor. So now the new origin is right there. Do this with the top as well. I want it to be rotating around the hinges right here. So select all these, Shift-S, cursor to selected, tab out, Control-Alt-Shift-C, origin to 3D cursor, and there you go. Now the lock, I just want to do the following, Shift-Control-Alt-C, origin to geometry. So it's just going to make it in the center right there, like you can see. So that's what we want. Now, this one right here, it's still going to be pivoting around this, which you don't want, so I actually am going to delete this one more time. Sorry about that. Duplicate this one that we just barely moved all the pivot points, and I'm going to move this to a second layer like this. Now when we export these, the problem is going to be, it's going to actually export just fine, except these different parts are going to be exported separately, which we want, but this will not be centered at 0, 0, 0. It's going to be centered at, if you hit N, 0.0009, 0.30228, etc. And so this second one, I'm going to show you how to fix this. So if you go here and change the location to 0, 0, 0, it actually is going to export at 0, 0, 0. The problem being, it is no longer, when we bring it into Unity, it's actually going to look like this. But I'm going to show you how to fix that. So let's go ahead and select the lock, make the location 0, 0, 0, just like that. This top latch, same thing, 0, 0, 0. And now both of these are ready for export. I'm going to show you the advantages and disadvantages of doing it both ways. Now this third one, I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift-S, cursor to center, Shift-A, make a single bone armature. I'm going to apply it to this, so go to modifiers, add an armature, and select armature like that. And now when I export this, it's going to export fine, the location's good, but for whatever reason, Blender is going to change this so that the rotation is off by -90. So you want to change the X rotation to 90, like such. Let's make sure to go ahead and go into the settings of the armature and hit X-ray so we can see through this. And then it's going to change the scale to 100. So we want to go 0.01, 0.01, 0.01. Now as you tab into edit mode, you can go ahead and just grab this bone, and you can move it. So even though it's teeny, right? So the scale is still 0.01, it's going to scale correctly into Unity, which is good. You don't have to do this. It's not going to break anything. It's just going to make it so when you export it, if you don't change it to 90 and 0.011, etc., the bone is going to say the rotation's -90 and the scale is 100. So that's why we do this. So this should export just fine. Let's go ahead and actually make this armature right now. So the first thing I want to do is, so I want it to go to basically this joint here, this hinge here, go straight down like this. I'm going to hit Shift-D, make a new bone, Shift-D. You can see there's this little connection right there. That's not what I'm meant to do. There's a little connection right there. I want to break that. So in the bone settings, you can break this, okay? And this is going to be my lock here. So I'm going to actually rotate this 190 degrees, go to front view, and then this is going to be the latch. So I'm just extruding this by selecting that bone. So this is going to be for the lock. Now let's go ahead and name these first, and then we will move them where we want this. We have to name them the different vertex groups names. So let's go ahead and make sure we have those memorized. We have lock top and lock bottom. We have top latch, bottom, and top. So going back into the armature, go to the bone settings here, call this bottom, call this top, call this, I think it was latch top, and we can double check. Call this lock bottom. And call this lock top. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tab into this chest. Unlimit, make it so you can see through it by hitting that limit selection right there. Go to vertex groups, hit C. Now I just know that there's vertices right here. So as I select those, it selected all the right ones, right? Yep, it did. Shift S, cursor to center, cursor to select, excuse me. And you can see the cursor goes right there. Now as I tab into this bone, if you select this, hit Shift S, selection to cursor, it'll snap right there, so it's going to be perfectly pivoted. Let's do the same thing here. I know there's a joint right there. Now, let me show you a cool trick. When working with bones and meshes, if you move a bone to a different layer like that, it's still there, but you can actually tab back and forth. So I'm tabbing in, selecting this, Shift S, cursor to selected. It looks like I have more than just that selected, so I'm doing that again. There we go. Tabbing into this bone, Shift S, selected to cursor, and you can see it rolled that, which is fine, we can fix that. Selecting this lock here, so I'm going to the vertex groups, lock, select, Shift S, cursor to selected, and you can see we have this still selected. I keep forgetting to unselect it, excuse me. So Shift S, cursor to selected, grab this bone right here, Shift S, selection to cursor, and it moves it automatically like that. And now I can basically grab that end right there, move it just straight down. I hit Z to constrain it, straight down like this. And now I want to go right here, so I need to select this lock one last time. Zooming in, selecting right here, then Shift S, cursor to selected. You can see it went exactly in the middle of that lock right there. Grabbing, let's try and find it. Yeah, I have that selected. Shift S, selection to cursor. I'm actually going to delete this, because it's a lot easier just to extrude out a new one than trying to make it snap. But I do need to name this lock top, like such. And we should be good, so now all of the armature is attached. We just need to make sure that the bones are rolled correctly. So for example, if I hit 1, you can see this is rolled weird. So I just select everything. You can go to armature bone roll, or you can just hit Control N, right? So we're going to do, I think it's global x-axis. Yep, that works just fine. Now if you tab into your armature, hit Shift Tab, it'll go into pose mode. I think it's Shift Tab. Nope, it's just Tab, my bad. So this is pose mode. Ah, sorry about that, it's Control Tab, it's been a while. So now as I move this, you can see that it actually locks correctly onto the top. Moving this latch doesn't move the latch, so I didn't name that correctly. So this is latch top, selecting the box. It's supposed to be named top latch, top latch, top latch. So let's go back here, top latch. I had that backwards. All right. And now as I move this, you can see that that works. If I select this bone right here and move it, that moves the whole lock. If I select this bone right here, it moves just the lock's little joint there, so that's perfect. If you hit everything and hit Control R, not Control R, Shift R. Ah. There we go. Alt R. That resets the rotation. I'm having troubles there. Sorry about that. And so now this is ready to export. Everything is good. This one is ready to export. Everything is centered at 0, 0. And this one is ready to export. It has no armature, but in Unity, I'm going to be able to move it like this, and everything is good there. So let's go ahead and select this one layer. Go to File, Export, .fbx. Selected object so it doesn't, send everything. And experimental. Let's go ahead and go to the folder you want. I'm going to call this box A, just for testing purposes. Go to the second, select everything, export, and then we just do the same thing over and over again. This is box B. So we're good to go there. And then this third one, you want the armature, so make sure you get that layer, select everything, export, FBX, box C. Let's jump into Unity and see what this looks like. All right, so we're in Unity. We have box A. Let's go ahead and drag this in here. You can see, as I go in here, if I rotate this, it rotates well, except this latch is not attached. So I can name these in Blender if I want to. I could have named this like top, for example. And then I could have named the latch, etc. So I'm going to name this latch. What we want to do is we want to parent this latch to the top. So you go parent like that. Yep. And now, as you rotate this, the latch would be attached to that. And then you can name these different things. So that's lock. You can see it's centered. You see the bottom. The only problem with this is if we expand this out, you can see these things are not centered at 0, 0, 0, which I like all of my objects being centered at 0, 0, 0. This isn't bad. If this is just you that's working with this, there's going to be very little trouble that you have just doing it this way. But if you're trying to export to other people or to the Unity Asset Store, for example, you do want these all positioned at 0, 0, 0 like this, 0, 0, 0, etc. And so you'll see the problem though is if I drag and drop this here, let's go ahead and hide box A. You can see this is actually perfect. Oh, I did box A again. I was going to say like that doesn't look right. It's box B we want to move. There we go. You can see the pivot point's correct, except the object itself isn't where it's supposed to be. So what you can do is you can go back to this, copy this transform. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy component. Okay. Grab this box and then go to transform, paste component values. And you can see it will automatically move it back to where you want. And so the file is 0, 0, 0, but the prefab is going to be constructed the way you want it. Now I'll just go through each of these different parts. So we have the top here. Let's get this bottom. That's the bottom. This is the lock. So let's see where we want the lock to be. The lock, I copy that component, go over here, copy the lock to this. So paste component values and it moves there. Last but not least, the latch, copy that component. So copy component, go to the latch here, paste the component here. Oops. So let's unbreak this. So copy component, paste component. This should work. Yeah, there we go. And now if you want to, you could parent the latch. You can name these things. I would have just named these things in Blender, but this is just basically showing you how to do this really fast. I would just drag and drop this and it would automatically create a prefab. So let's go ahead and add a texture to this. So materials, let's find this strong box, materials. I can just drag and drop this here. And now you'll see that you have to drag and drop the materials to each individual thing like that. But now if you bring this in to any folder, it'll create a prefab from that. And so it is good to go and it's ready to be set up and used. And it's perfect. So again, if you go to that file that we had, the first one, you could drag and drop it just fine. But these things are not centered at 0, 0, 0 in the file itself. Whereas option B, it is, but there is a little bit of manual work you have to do to get the prefabs created. But after you create one prefab, you can just basically make other prefabs from that. The last one is the armature. So let's go ahead and bring that one in. So I'm going to delete this. The advantages of the armature are such. I bring this in. You can look at this armature. The position is 0, 0, 0. The scale is 1, 1, 1 because we changed the position to 90, the rotation, excuse me. And we changed the scale to 0.01. So that exported perfectly. One of the first benefits is if you actually want to drag and drop a material onto this, it's as simple as just dragging onto the whole thing because it's one mesh. But now the disadvantage is I can't click this to rotate this. What you have to do is go into the armature and you have to rotate the armature itself if it's not animated, right? But you can find the different parts. So there's the top latch there. We can rotate that just fine. And so that's kind of cool if you want to actually delete. So let's find this. The lock there. You can't delete the lock, but you sure can move it. Or you could just scale it down to 0 if you wanted to. So watch this, 0, 0, 0. It basically gets rid of that lock there. And so there's some advantages with that. And that's more or less how you export things into Unity. So just going over very briefly, let's go back to Blender. You can just break it, if you're not using armature, you can just break it up into the different parts and put the pivot rotations where you want it. Make sure that the scale is 1. Export FBX, make sure that you have the experimental. So this thing right here is the most important thing. And that'll take care of most of your needs. If you want them to actually be 0, 0, 0, you center them here and then you move them in Unity to make your prefabs. If you want to use armatures, you need to make sure that it is, here, let's tab out of that. There we go. Make sure the rotation is 90 and the scale is 0.01, and then you're going to be good to go that way. Do it before you do any animations or anything like that. Otherwise, it's going to be a nightmare to try and go back and fix. That's it. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you would like access to these Strongbox files, go ahead and become a Patreon supporter. There's a lot of different files that we offer, and it helps us make videos and buy equipment and things like that. Also, feel free to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all those other social medias. Follow, like, subscribe. Have a great day. Bye.